In the dimly lit boardroom, the storm outside cast flickering shadows as Marcus Reed stood at the head of a glass table, sleeves rolled up, voice clipped while pointing toward the projection screen. He was finalizing a major acquisition deal that had taken months of negotiation. When his phone buzzed on the table, frowning at the nanny's number, he excused himself with a brief nod and stepped into the hallway. "What is it, Victoria?" he asked. A panicked voice came through the speaker. "Mr. Reed, I am so sorry. I cannot get to Sofia tonight. My car broke down, and there is no way I can make it into the city." Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose. "You are telling me this now? My daughter is sick, and I have another hour left in this meeting. I called your assistant already. She said she would arrange a replacement." After ending the call, Marcus took a deep breath and returned to the meeting. He gave instructions to his VP, then checked his messages. A single text from his assistant blinked on his screen. "Found emergency sitter. Natalie's sister on her way now." He pocketed the phone and left the office, stepping into the elevator with the calm of someone who lived in perpetual crisis control. 20 minutes later, Marcus arrived at his penthouse, loosened his tie, and walked into the soft glow of the apartment. Sofia was curled up on the couch under a blanket, cheeks flushed with fever, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Daddy," she looked up sleepily. He knelt beside her, brushing hair from her forehead. "I am here, sweetheart. You will feel better soon." The doorbell rang. He straightened up and walked to the door, expecting the usual uniformed professionalism of one of Natalie's colleagues. Instead, a woman stood there, drenched from the rain, hair pulled into a messy bun, holding a small tote bag and wearing a navy blue cardigan that looked more suited to a classroom than an emergency nanny call. She looked up at him, blinking water from her lashes. "Hi, I'm Emma Parker. I got a message saying someone needed an emergency babysitter." Marcus frowned. "You are Natalie's sister?" She tilted her head. "Natalie. No, I think this may have been a mistake." There was a long pause. Then Sofia coughed behind him, a weak sound that sent a twist through his chest. He opened the door wider. "Mistake or not, I need help right now. Can you stay just for tonight?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. Of course, within minutes, Emma had her coat hung up, shoes off, and was kneeling beside Sofia on the couch, her voice soft and rhythmic as she spoke to the little girl. She checked her temperature with a gentle touch, helped her sip water, and whispered stories while rubbing her back. Marcus stood in the hallway, stunned. By the time he returned with fever medication, Sofia had fallen asleep curled against Emma's side. He handed over the medicine quietly. "You seem to know what you are doing." Emma smiled without looking up. "I used to be a preschool teacher. I'm taking a break." Marcus didn't ask why. He only watched as Emma gently shifted Sofia onto a pillow and pulled the blanket up to her chin. Later in the kitchen, Emma brewed tea she found in the cabinet while Marcus sat at the counter, still trying to figure out how this stranger had managed to calm his daughter faster than anyone else ever had. "I'm sorry again," Emma said. "I really thought the message was from a family I used to babysit for years ago. I just showed up." He shook his head. "You showed up when it mattered." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma glanced toward the hallway where Sofia was sleeping. "She is a wonderful little girl. You must be doing something right." Marcus let out a breath that sounded a lot like relief. "I try. Some days I feel like I am just surviving. You're not alone in that." He looked at her more closely, noticing the tired edge to her kind eyes. "You seem good at this. Are you sure you're not still a teacher?" She smiled faintly. "It's complicated." He didn't press, but something about her presence, her steadiness unsettled the part of him that had learned to function without needing anyone. As the rain continued tapping against the windows, Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Enterprises, realized that perhaps for the first time in years, someone had stepped into his world and made it feel a little less empty. The apartment was quiet, the soft hum of the city far below muffled by double-paned glass. Emma stood in the softly lit hallway, watching Sofia sleep peacefully on the oversized couch. Her tiny body curled like a comma beneath the thick-knit blanket. The fever had gone down slightly. Her cheeks, though still pink, were no longer burning. Marcus appeared beside Emma with 2 mugs of tea. "She's out for the night, I think," Emma whispered. He handed her a cup. "Thanks to you." She accepted it, warming her hands. She just needed someone to listen, and probably a little ginger tea. Marcus gave a quiet chuckle, rare and brief. "I should hire you on the spot." Emma raised an eyebrow. "That would be quite the job offer considering I showed up here by mistake." "You showed up when no one else did," he said simply. They sat on opposite ends of the wide leather sofa in the living room. Between them, the city lights stretched endlessly, glittering and untouchable. Marcus leaned back, rolling his shoulders. Emma sipped her tea, her eyes moving from the skyline to the photo frames on the console table. One of Marcus with a younger Sophia, another of a woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile. "She was beautiful," Emma said softly. Marcus followed her gaze, his voice lowered. "She was everything." A long silence followed. "I'm sorry," Emma said. "She passed away 2 years ago," he replied, not looking at the photo. "Cancer. It was fast, too fast." Emma didn't say anything. She just nodded, letting the weight of the moment settle naturally. Marcus studied the tea in his hands. "Since then, it's just been me and Sophia. Nannies come and go. Schedules change. Life doesn't pause because you're trying to breathe again." Emma listened, really listened, not as someone curious, but as someone who understood the ache behind every word. "Do you get help? Family?" she asked. "Not really. My parents live across the country." "Her parents," he trailed off. "It's complicated." They both glanced at Sophia, who let out a tiny sigh in her sleep. "She's strong," Emma murmured. Marcus nodded. "Stronger than me some days." Emma smiled, then hesitated before saying, "You're doing a good job." He looked at her, surprised. "You've known me less than 3 hours. 3 hours is long enough to see the way you looked at her when she cried. Long enough to see the world stops when she needs you." Marcus's jaw flexed, emotion flickering behind his steady eyes. There was something in Emma's presence, a quiet steadiness that made it feel like it was okay to speak without fixing everything. So he said, shifting the subject gently, "Why isn't someone like you in a classroom full of kids?" Emma hesitated. "I had a student," she began slowly, fingers tightening around her mug. "He got hurt. It was an accident, but I couldn't stop blaming myself, even when no one else did. I took time off, then more time, and I never went back." Marcus didn't interrupt. He just nodded slowly. "I think," Emma said after a long pause, "I forgot how to be around children without being afraid." He tilted his head slightly. "You didn't seem afraid tonight." She smiled faintly. Sophia made it easy. They both fell quiet again, not uncomfortably, but in that strange space where the strangers start to feel a little less strange. Eventually, Marcus stood. "You can take the guest room. It's down the hall. Sophia sleeps better when someone's nearby, and I trust you." Emma blinked. "You sure?" He gave her a tired but sincere nod. "I haven't been sure about many things lately, but this feels right." She followed him to the hallway, pausing once more to glance at the sleeping girl on the couch. Marcus looked at her. "Thank you, Emma, for tonight." She smiled. "Thank you for letting me stay." As the door to the guest room clicked shut behind her, Marcus stood alone for a moment, staring at the space she had just filled. Something unfamiliar tugged at him, like the beginning of a question he didn't yet have the courage to ask. But somewhere down the hallway, a stranger was already making his world feel less like a burden and more like home. The next morning arrived quietly, with sunlight peeking through half-closed curtains. Marcus was already dressed in a fresh suit, pacing the kitchen with his phone pressed to his ear while pouring cereal into a bowl. Sophia sat at the counter in her pajamas, swinging her feet and playing absently with her spoon. Across from her, Emma appeared in the doorway, dressed in her own simple jeans, a soft gray sweater, and her hair loosely tied back. "Good morning," she said gently. Sophia's face lit up. "Miss Emma." Marcus turned, surprised at the burst of excitement from his normally reserved daughter. "I guess someone's happy to see you." Emma smiled and walked over. "How's the fever?" "Gone," Sophia said proudly. "I feel like pancakes." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You barely ate toast last night." "I changed my mind." Emma chuckled. "Mind if I make her something? I'm kind of a pancake wizard." Marcus hesitated, then stepped aside. "Be my guest." Within minutes, the kitchen filled with the scent of vanilla and cinnamon. Sophia giggled as Emma flipped the pancakes with flair, adding blueberries into the shapes of stars. "I didn't know we had blueberries," Marcus muttered. "I found them behind a wall of protein bars," Emma replied, tossing him a playful glance. He sat at the counter and watched as Sophia devoured the breakfast. He had not seen his daughter this animated in weeks, not even with family, certainly not with hired nannies. After clearing the dishes, Emma turned to Marcus. "If you need help again today, I'm free. You don't have other plans?" She shrugged. "Not anymore." Marcus studied her for a moment. The offer wasn't professional. It was personal somehow. She was choosing scoozing them. "I'd appreciate that," he said. What started as one more day turned into 3, then a week. Emma became a part of their daily rhythm. She walked Sophia to the park, taught her how to fold paper swans, and helped her practice her letters with glitter pens and way too many stickers. Marcus came home each night to laughter echoing down the hall, and stories he hadn't heard before, stories Sophia hadn't been willing to share with anyone. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Marcus invited Emma to join them at the farmer's market. They wandered through booths of fresh flowers and homemade jams, Sophia holding Emma's hand as they admired a small puppet show. They bought lemonade and shared a giant cinnamon roll, which Sophia insisted on feeding them in alternating bites. It felt dangerously like a real family. Later at the park, they spread a blanket under a tree. Emma leaned against the trunk, reading a storybook aloud while Sophia curled up beside her. Marcus watched them from the picnic basket, his heart twisting with something both beautiful and terrifying. As the sun began to set, Sophia lay her head on Emma's lap and whispered something. Emma looked down, startled. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Sophia repeated, a little louder this time. "Can you be my new mommy?" The words hung in the air like a delicate thread. Emma's eyes filled, her hand brushing Sophia's hair. She glanced at Marcus, who had frozen completely. He didn't speak, couldn't. Emma smiled softly and said, "That's a very big question, Sophia. Let's keep having fun together, okay?" Sophia nodded, content, and soon fell asleep right there in her lap. Marcus finally exhaled, walking over quietly. He sat beside them, not saying anything, just watching the two people who had quietly and completely upended his world. "She's never said anything like that to anyone before," he said finally. "I didn't know what to say," Emma admitted. "You said exactly the right thing." They sat in silence, the kind that no longer felt like strangers passing time. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something they were both afraid to name. But something had shifted, and they both knew this was no longer temporary. The following week passed in a blur of familiar routines. Breakfasts filled with laughter, afternoons at the library, evenings curled up with storybooks. On the outside, everything looked like a picture of happiness. But something had changed inside Marcus, and Emma could feel it. He was quieter now, more reserved. He still smiled when Sophia clung to Emma's hand or proudly showed off a drawing they had made together. But there was a certain distance in his gaze, something she could not quite reach. One evening, as Sophia napped after a busy afternoon at the aquarium, Marcus walked into the living room where Emma sat sorting colored pencils. With soft music playing in the background, he cleared his throat. "Dinner's almost ready. You're welcome to stay if you want." She looked up and smiled. "I'd like that," but something in his tone made her hesitate. Later, as they sat at the table, Sophia asleep in her room, the air between them felt heavier than usual. Emma gently pushed her half-empty plate aside and asked, "Is everything okay, Marcus?" He didn't answer right away. He poured himself a glass of water, stared at it, then said, "This whatever it is we've built, it's starting to feel like more than I expected." Emma's heart skipped. "And that's a problem?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "No, but it's complicated." She nodded slowly, her fingers lacing together on the table. "You're afraid." "I'm terrified," he said honestly. "Of letting you in, of Sophia getting attached, of losing everything again." Her eyes softened. "Marcus, I never wanted to come into your life and replace someone." "You didn't," he said quickly. "But that doesn't mean I know how to do this. I lost someone, and I've spent the last 2 years making sure Sophia never felt that kind of loss again." You're trying to protect her, Emma said gently. And maybe protecting her means not letting anyone get close. Emma's throat tightened. Including me. He didn't answer. The silence was its own kind of confirmation. Emma stood slowly, gathering her bag. I think I should go. Emma, he began. But she gave him a small, sad smile. You don't have to explain. I understand. You're not ready. She walked toward the front door, paused, then turned back one last time. I wasn't looking for a family when I showed up at your door that night, but somehow you became one. And I don't know how to walk away from that without it hurting. She left before he could reply. The apartment felt colder after she was gone. The next morning, Sophia woke to find Emma's shoes missing from the hallway. She looked around in confusion, then found a small folded note on the table in the playroom. Her tiny fingers opened it slowly. You are brave and kind, and I will always care about you. Love, Miss Emma. Sophia clutched the note to her chest and began to cry. When Marcus came running in, she looked up with wide, tear-filled eyes. Did Miss Emma leave because of me? Marcus knelt beside her, wrapping her in his arms. No, sweetheart. She left because of me. And for the first time in a long time, he realized something painful and clear. He had built walls so high around his heart that even love could not find its way in. And now he had pushed away the one person who had made him believe it was okay to feel again. Days passed, then a week. The apartment was quieter. Too quiet. Sophia stopped asking for Emma after the third night, but she carried the little note around like a talisman, clutching it in her small hands when she thought no one was watching. Marcus watched her, guilt eating away at him like rust. He still woke early, packed her lunch, dropped her off at preschool, and returned to his meetings like nothing had changed, but everything had. One afternoon, after a particularly lifeless meeting, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at a coffee cup Emma had once left on the shelf, a simple ceramic one with tiny sunflowers. She had said it reminded her of something warm, something she missed. His chest tightened. I made a mistake, he muttered under his breath. Without thinking, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through contact after contact until he reached a familiar number at Emma's. She had never given it, but the sitter's service he thought he had called weeks ago. This time he asked directly, "Do you know where Emma Parker is?" There was a pause on the other end. Then a hesitant voice said, "She volunteers at Maple and Bloom Books downtown part-time. She works with kids there sometimes." That evening, Marcus stood outside the small bookstore tucked between a bakery and a flower shop, heart thudding. Through the front window, he saw her. Emma sat in the reading circle, cross-legged on a rug, surrounded by a small group of children. Her eyes sparkled as she read from a brightly illustrated book, her voice animated and full of life. She laughed, gesturing wildly, and the kids roared with giggles. Marcus couldn't move. She looked so herself in a way she hadn't been when she'd left. When the reading session ended, she rose to her feet, hugging a little girl goodbye before collecting the scattered books. As she turned toward the front of the store, her eyes met his through the glass. She froze. Marcus stepped inside slowly, hands in his coat pockets. "Hi," he said softly. Emma looked unsure, guarded. "Hi. I didn't come here to ask you to come back," he said. "I just needed to say thank you." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For giving me something I couldn't, for giving me something I didn't know I needed." Emma lowered her gaze. "You made it clear you weren't ready." "I wasn't," he admitted. "But losing you made me realize I might never be ready if I keep living in fear." She crossed her arms, but her expression softened. "Fear is real, Marcus, but so is love." He took a step closer, pulling something from his pocket. It was a bracelet, bright plastic beads strung unevenly with the letters SOPHIA in the center. "She made this for you the night you left," he said. She hid it under her pillow. "I found it this morning." Emma's fingers trembled as she reached out and took it. "She misses you," he said. "We both do." "I miss her too," Emma whispered. Then after a long pause, "And I miss you." Marcus's eyes glistened. "Emma, I don't want to pretend I have everything figured out, but I know this: when you left, everything felt empty." He exhaled slowly, voice cracking just enough to betray the man behind the CEO. "I want to try with you, with Sophia as a family. No walls, no hiding." She looked up, hope flickering like dawn behind her eyes. "I can't promise I won't be scared. I don't want perfect," he replied. "I just want real." She smiled then, soft and steady, and stepped into his arms. As he held her tightly, the bracelet pressed between their palms, Marcus knew he had just been given a second chance. And this time, he wasn't going to let go. Emma did not move back in. Not right away, but she started showing up again quietly, like a melody slowly returning to a forgotten song. She came over in the mornings before preschool, helped Sophia pick out her socks, always mismatched on purpose, and packed little handwritten notes inside her lunchbox. Sometimes they said things like "Be brave today" or "Remember, sunshine starts with you." Sophia adored them, and Marcus did too, even if he never said it out loud. Their rhythm resumed, not rushed but steady. Pancake Saturdays returned with flour on noses and giggles echoing through the kitchen. Movie nights resumed with Emma curled on one side of the couch, Sophia in the middle, and Marcus on the other, their fingers brushing over shared popcorn. The apartment, once echoing with silence, now felt lived in again. It smelled of cinnamon and warmth, crayons and laughter. One evening, after Sophia had fallen asleep mid-sentence during a bedtime story, Marcus walked out to find Emma sitting on the couch, flipping through a stack of the child's drawings. "She made these today," Emma said, holding up one. "Apparently, I'm a superhero babysitter teacher lady." Marcus chuckled and sat beside her, looking at the picture. A stick figure version of Emma wore a bright pink cape, with Sophia and Marcus on either side. "She's not wrong," he said, his voice soft. Emma studied the picture for a long moment, then placed it on the table. "I've been thinking about going back to teaching." Marcus looked at her with genuine surprise. "You're ready?" "I'm scared," she admitted. "But yeah, I think I am." He reached out and took her hand, his thumb tracing small circles over her knuckles. "I think the classroom's been missing you as much as we did." She smiled, a real one, and leaned into his shoulder. "The day you showed up at the bookstore, I remembered who I used to be, or maybe who I still am." "You're so much more," he whispered. They sat like that for a while, the silence between them full, not empty. Later that week, Marcus invited Emma somewhere unexpected. She hesitated when he mentioned the cemetery, but she said yes without pressing for details. They walked through the quiet tree-lined grounds until he stopped at a modest headstone. Olivia Reed, beloved wife, cherished mother. Emma stood beside him, feeling the weight of memory in the air. "She was kind," Marcus said. "Brilliant. She made this place feel like a home." Losing her, it felt like the world just shifted off its axis. He took a breath, the cool air visible between his words. "For a long time, I thought loving again would be betrayal. That if I moved forward, I'd be letting her go." Emma looked up at him, eyes gentle. "But you showed me that hearts aren't graves. They can hold more than one love. They can grow. They can remember and still welcome something new." She reached for his hand. "I'll never try to replace her," Emma said softly. "I don't want you to," he replied. "I want you to be exactly who you are." They knelt and placed a single sunflower beside the headstone. "Nema's idea. She would have liked you," Marcus murmured. "I hope so," Emma whispered. On the walk back to the car, their fingers intertwined naturally. It was not grand, not dramatic, but it was real. It was to people choosing to begin again. Not from scratch, but from the broken places they had gently mended together. And in that choice, love was not reborn. It simply came home. Spring arrived with soft mornings and golden afternoons. And with it came something that felt very close to peace. Emma had officially accepted a part-time teaching position at a local preschool, just a few blocks from Marcus's apartment. She now walked Sophia to school with her, their steps in rhythm, their laughter echoing through quiet streets. Some days Marcus would meet them on the way back, coffee in hand, pretending he had no ulterior motive beyond caffeine, though the way his eyes lingered on Emma said otherwise. One Thursday afternoon, Sophia came home, certificate clutched tightly in her small hand. "Look," she beamed. "I was student of the month." Marcus lifted her in the air, spinning her in a slow circle. "That's amazing, sweetheart." Emma stood by, clapping enthusiastically. "You've been so kind to your friends and such a great listener. Of course they picked you." Sophia's eyes sparkled. "We're having a ceremony." Will you both come? Wouldn't miss it for the world, Marcus said. The day of the ceremony, Sophia stood on stage with her classmates in front of a small gathering of parents and teachers. She spotted Marcus and Emma sitting side by side in the front row, and she grinned so wide her cheeks puffed up. After the applause, she ran straight to them, throwing her arms around both. "I'm so glad you're both here," she whispered. Later that night, after dinner and cupcakes and a living room dance party, Marcus tucked Sophia into bed. She clutched her stuffed bunny and whispered, "I hope Miss Emma stays forever." He kissed her forehead, the weight of her words pressing gently on his chest. "Me too, baby girl." When he returned to the living room, Emma was folding laundry, humming softly to herself. He watched her for a long moment before stepping forward. "You've become part of everything here," he said. She glanced up, cheeks pink. "I hope that's okay." He smiled. "It's more than okay." He hesitated, then added, "Will you have dinner with us this Friday? Just us. No toys, no TV, just a real dinner." Emma blinked. "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Reed?" He smirked. "I believe I am." She grinned. "Then I'd love to." Friday night came, and Marcus had gone above and beyond. He wore a navy button-down, set the table with candles, and even tried to cook. Though Emma gently saved the meal from total disaster, Sophia sat in her special booster seat, declaring the pasta fancy, and insisted on giving it toast with her cup of apple juice. "To us," she said proudly. "Our family." Marcus and Emma exchanged a glance over flickering candle light, emotion rising between them. After Sophia went to bed, Emma stepped out onto the balcony, drawn by the cool air and the city lights. Marcus followed. "She's happy," Emma said. "She's happy because of you," Marcus replied. Emma shook her head. "Because of us." Marcus turned to her. "You've changed everything, Emma. You brought color back into our world." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma froze. "I'm not asking for forever tonight," Marcus said quickly, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant gold ring set with a single diamond. "I'm asking you to say yes to now, to waking up here, to pancakes, to books on the floor, to all of it with me." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. From the hallway, a sleepy voice called, "Did someone say pancakes?" They both laughed, and Marcus turned to Emma, placing the ring on her finger with a look so full of quiet love it could have made the stars weep. And in that moment, there were no missing pieces, no ghosts, no what-ifs, just them, together. And more than enough. Sunlight poured through the trees of a quiet garden behind a brick townhouse in Brooklyn. White chairs lined a narrow cobblestone path, petals scattered underfoot, laughter bubbling gently in the air. The backyard wedding was small, intimate to just a few close friends, some colleagues, and Sophia, who had declared herself flower girl, ring bearer, and boss of everything. Emma stood at the end of the path in a soft ivory dress, simple and timeless. Her eyes sparkled as she met Marcus's, standing beneath a canopy of white blossoms, Sophia clinging to one hand, a bouquet in the other. When Emma reached them, Marcus took both of her hands in his. "You walked into my life by accident," he said, voice warm. "But loving you has been the most intentional thing I've ever done." Emma's voice trembled as she replied, "I didn't know I could find home in someone else's arms. But you and Sophia are the home I never dared to dream about." The officiant smiled and declared, "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Before he could say anything else, Sophia shouted, "You can kiss her," and everyone laughed, and Marcus did. Their kiss was soft and certain, and Sophia threw handfuls of petals into the air like confetti. The reception that followed was just as simple. Folding chairs, fairy lights, mason jars with lemonade, and a chocolate cake Sophia helped decorate unevenly. There were no press releases, no grand ballroom, no spotlight, just love. The front window of a charming corner shop now read the Sunflower Library, children's books, and community classes. Inside, Emma stood behind a table, guiding a small group of kids through a craft session. Crayons rolled across the table. Storybooks lined every wall, and in the back room, Marcus was reading to a circle of toddlers who hung on every word of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. At his feet sat a little boy with dark curls and white ice liver, not quite two. With Emma's nose and Marcus's curiosity, Sophia sat nearby, now a confident 6-year-old, reading aloud to Oliver when his father finished. "You're going to be a big reader like me," she told him matter-of-factly. One Saturday afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the store. Out stepped James and Eleanor Reed, Marcus's parents. They had stayed distant during his early struggles, but time had softened them. Inside, Sophia ran to the door. "Grandma, Grandpa, want to meet Oliver again?" They entered, tentative but smiling, and Emma handed Oliver over carefully. Marcus's father held the boy awkwardly, unsure, but Oliver reached for his tie and giggled. Something in the old man's face cracked. He looked down at his grandson, then up at Marcus. "You've built something good here," he said. Marcus simply nodded. "I had help." Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the brownstones, Marcus sat on the back steps of the shop, Emma leaning against his shoulder, Oliver asleep in her arms. "You remember the night we met?" she asked. "You mean the emergency babysitter mix-up?" he teased. She nudged him. "That was chaos. Best chaos of my life." They sat in silence, watching fireflies blink in the garden. "I used to think family had to look a certain way," Emma murmured. "But now I know it's just love. That's all it's ever been." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "And this is the kind I never thought I deserved." Oliver stirred, and Emma hummed softly to settle him again. Inside, Sophia arranged books on a shelf labeled Staff Picks by Sophia Reed. One of the titles was How Families Are Made, not by blood, but by showing up, by staying, by loving even when it's hard. And under a painted sign that read "You belong here," the Reed family loud. Imperfect had found everything they had ever needed, each other. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. Marcus, Emma, Sophia, and little Oliver reminded us that family isn't always about perfect beginnings, but about the people who choose to stay, to love, and to build something real from unexpected moments. Sometimes a wrong number leads to the right person. Sometimes love finds us when we least expect it, but exactly when we need it most. If this story moved you, made you smile, or stirred something deep within your heart, we invite you to subscribe to Whispers of the Soul. Every week, we bring you new tales of love, healing, resilience, and the quiet magic of human connection. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of dreamers and believers. Let us continue to touch your soul, one story at a time. Because in a world that often moves too fast, these whispered stories remind us of what truly matters. Subscribe now and never miss a moment of the magic we create together.